If you've been following the news on the US-China chip war, it might be a little difficult to judge which side is winning. It's because both sides have media houses that are reporting how this chip war is succeeding when it comes to Western media and is backfiring when it comes to Chinese media. But what's happening in reality? Well, since the US imposed chip curbs, China has been dissolving them, or at least trying to dissolve them. As of the latest news, the US is thinking of unleashing another set of restrictions, this time by encouraging its allies to impose curbs. To neutralize this, China is secretly resorting to the option it had stored in cold storage-like reserves. What is it, and how is China preparing to neutralize the next set of export curbs? Watch this video to find all the answers. And here's a reminder to please like the video and subscribe, as it helps with the YouTube algorithm bringing our videos to you. Now let's get started. Chapter 1. China's near-decade-long future strategy. Back in 2008, China launched the Thousand Talents Plan, or TTP, aimed at bringing Chinese and foreign academics to China. This was done so China could get leverage on these researchers and harness their intellectual abilities to further its technological goals. Even if the main focus was to bring Chinese experts settled in the US and worldwide back to China, it offered initiatives for foreign experts as well. In other words, US citizens could come and settle in China, in return for providing cognitive service so China could be a global leader in science and technology. That's why by 2017, China had recruited about 7,000 researchers, including 70 Nobel laureates and 300 US researchers. Until 2018, China actively tried to get skilled foreign scientists, and eventually this made the US feel threatened. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, of the US also issued a detailed report on this Chinese program, calling it a threat. Hence, China had to halt this as an investigation into what scientists were doing started. However, the US did not know that China was preparing for something untraceable, which could give it a continuous supply of foreign researchers. But before we get into that, we first have to talk about the other part of the equation. Chapter 2. Importing chip equipment for rainy days. Earlier, the US offered a waiver for some Dutch and Japanese companies to export chip equipment to China. However, as new sanctions are being prepared, this waiver may be terminated. Hence, before these curbs would come into action, China had already started increasing imports of chip equipment. In January 2023, the import worth reached $1.14 billion, while in May, it reached $1.37 billion. However, when China felt new sanctions could be unleashed, it almost doubled its chip equipment imports. Hence, in July this year, the imports reached $2.69 billion. Interestingly, chip equipment coming from the Netherlands and Japan increased, which can be forced this time to tighten the curbs. This means that China has stockpiled whatever it needs and the upcoming sanctions would be, perhaps, harmless. But this begs the question, how will China make chips, despite having equipment, if it does not know the chip-making secrets? To understand this, we have to move to our next chapter. Chapter 3. A fresh tactic to target elite university talents. Just 2 years after stopping the TTP, China secretly started the program again with a new name and setup. This was part of a bigger plan to make China better at technology, the same plan as earlier. Since China could feel apprehensions about being sidelined in technology because it was dependent on chip making, this plan was quite justified. The new program, called Cunning or Enlightenment, offered attractive benefits, like helping buy a home and big bonuses of 3 to 5 million yuan if the researchers agreed to come to China. To make this program effective and not attract attention from the US, everything was done quietly. Even if it was being run by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, it was using non-official documents and ads to attract researchers. If people are to find out about this program on the official website of the Chinese Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, they would not find it because it's a covert program. The US often says China takes ideas and technologies from them, including by getting talented people. Perhaps it's right, but that's how things work. Nonetheless, when the US came to know that Cunning was active, it issued an official notification, calling its citizens working in the Chinese chip and semiconductor industry back. They were given two choices: either lose their job or lose U.S. citizenship. However, even if U.S. researchers were called back home, experts say it's difficult to protect ideas from reaching China. The researchers can be forced to not go to China, but their communication with the Chinese companies they were working with cannot be terminated. Hence, experts believe chip-making secrets are still reaching China, a leakage the U.S. government cannot stop unless it tracks what its citizens are doing, which is against their freedom. Besides this, the Cunning program is still working since the U.S. government cannot trace its roots going into the Chinese government. Reuters reported that many of the people chosen for Cunning have gone to top U.S. universities and have at least one PhD. It should be noted that China is particularly interested in scientists trained at places like the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Harvard, and Stanford. It's also been reported that thousands of top researchers applied to join the Cunning program. However, it's unknown how many joined at the end. U.S. officials say that recruiting talent in the U.S. is acceptable, but they worry that university researchers are breaking the law. This could happen if they don't tell about their connections with Chinese groups while getting U.S. government money for research, sharing secret information, or violating export rules. Reuters reported that a company, Hangzhou Juki Technology, put up an ad in March on ResearchGate, a social network for academics. They were searching for people with PhDs from top universities and hiring 5,000 overseas researchers for Chinese firms. This work was said to be for Cunning and Huozhou, with each researcher possibly getting $2.1 million. The ad even said that those who recommended successful candidates for these programs could get rewards like diamonds, cars, and houses. This seems shady, as no covert company would offer these questionable rewards. But one thing is obvious: U.S. researchers, their ideas, and U.S. chip secrets are reaching China. Chapter 4: Opening the Treasure Chest. Something that the world often misunderstands about China is thinking of it as a single body. In other words, the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, the private sector, and the Chinese population are not one. They have different goals, and often they are in conflict with each other, even if the world does not get news of it. This means that if the Chinese Communist Party wants to hire Chinese researchers who studied abroad, it has to coax them. Only issuing an order won't work. Therefore, to hire researchers inside China, treasure chests have been opened. Local governments are investing heavily in their efforts to recruit talented Chinese citizens, launching programs like the Cunning Plan. This program was launched in 2019 and aims to gather Chinese academics who have ideas and secrets about technologies. A budget of 200 million yuan has been raised by the local government to offer rewards like startup funding, housing assistance, increased salaries, and other facilities they might demand. A report from the Wenzhou branch of the Communist Party's organization department revealed a budget increase of 49% compared to the previous year. This increase was mainly due to the allocation of 85 million yuan to support programs like Cunning. So far, programs like these are a success, attracting Chinese researchers who studied abroad in prestigious universities. Researchers like Dawei Di, who studied at the University of Cambridge, have joined the Cunning programs. In turn, he's helping Chinese companies with semiconductor optoelectronic devices. With this, China has both chip-making secrets and equipment in cold storage, which it can use whenever it wants, neutralizing the upcoming chip sanctions. Comment right below what you think about China's counter-move. If you like the video, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos.